Okay, so today we should be getting the PRS SE, but I've got to go out to work, so I've put a note on the delivery notice to say where to leave it, so fingers crossed it'll be with us today. So I went off to work this morning wondering whether or not this would be delivered, but as you can see I've got back from work tonight and it is here, the Custom 24 SE limited edition. So we'll get straight on with the unboxing. I must remind you though that I'm not being paid for this review. I've bought and paid for this myself. I'm not even going to tell you where I got it from, and that way I can give you completely my honest opinion about it, as always with China Guitar Sceptic channel. So let's get on and open up this box. Okay. No idea what to expect, what comes in the box. It does come with a little gig bag, which is rather cool. So, an interesting colour, isn't it, from PRS? It's pretty well packaged, although that's not a great start, is it? One of the zip ties has come off in the box. So, that's a bit of a shame. I don't know which one that's come off of. Seems to be one on there. There's one on each of those. Looks like that might have actually just been a spare anyway. Let's get rid of it. Okay, so let's start by opening up the little pouch. See what you get in here. A little bit like the Chinese, a really cheap lead. But there is the trem bar and an extra spring and a couple of Allen keys. So they're the adjusters. In fact, what we'll do, we'll take the trem bar out because it would be nice to have that available, and we'll stick those back in there so that we don't lose them. And let's open her up. That's where it came from. This first zip is missing its tie. I won't really be using that much anyway. So, in the box, or in the bag we should say, which I'll chuck out the way as well. PRS guitars, a limited lifetime warranty, so that get filled out and sent back sometime soon, hopefully. And then let's have a look. Good protection for the headstock. Incidentally, before I show you this, there are 6 colours. There's the tricolour burst, sapphire, which was the equivalent of the old Mateo blue. I believe that's what the core range colour is, and also the limited private stock and the wood library colour is Mateo blue. There's the purple burst, grey black, fire red and vintage sunburst. But I bought this colour. To those of you that have been long subscribers to CGS channel, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise because it is my favourite colour, and it is of course the purple burst. So taking it out, what have we got in the box? What have we got in here? We've got or in the bag I should say. Important, read first. All SE guitars feature double action truss rod. Although the truss rod is adjusted at the factory, it's not uncommon for nicks. They're saying basically that shipping may have caused this to go out of setup, but I happen to know from a good source that these are set up once when they're received, once in the Korean factory when they're sent out, and there's the checklist, and they're checked again in Europe when they come through for distribution. So this should have had a full setup. That looks beautiful. The action on that is very low, a little lower than I like it as it goes, but a nice action. And a little bit controversial on these, the satin neck, but it's not that controversial when you think that every single bit of market research that PRS have done, people have said that they like the satin necks, and I particularly like a nice slick satin neck, and it does feel very nice and slick. So, I see what there was a few comments to say that you can leave little marks along it when you put your sweaty fingers all over it, but actually that just feels good. They're non-locking tuners on this. I'm not sure, a lot of people have said that they're not sure about the black headstock, but actually I really like that. And I love, it was a no-brainer for me to buy one of these because I'm a big fan, as all of you know, of maple fingerboards. And so when PRS brought one out in their affordable SE range, it would be madness of me not to buy one. So it is, of course, the Purple Burst. I have it on authority that it's an extremely exclusive run for Europe of 100 of these guitars per colour. And I got that from Mixdown website. And they've suggested that there's 100 of each colour. So it was an absolute no-brainer for me to get hold of this. And I adore PRS. Oh, hello. The tone knob is very, very fast, whereas the volume knob has got a little bit of resistance to it. I'm not sure that I wouldn't prefer it the other way around to do those violins that Van Halen's so famous for. But certainly, hopefully that colour's coming over quite nicely. It's a very dark burst, but that's quite nicely in keeping with the fact that this burst dark colour around the edge, the black around the edge, is very dark, and so is the neck and so is the headstock. So I quite like the fact that it's quite a lot darker purple than actually any other purple guitar I've got. The speed knobs on it are a kind of ambery colour, and I've seen some with lighter colour knobs on this, I'm sure, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong. The switch, the toggle switch, is a three-way switch, and that's got a cream top on it, in common with the cream pickup surrounds, which I think looks really nice. It sets it off against the wood quite nicely. The tone knob is a push-pull, so that you can split the coils on these to get that nice thin coil split sound. And I'll wait and see when I play it how it's set up in terms of the pickup height adjustment. I'll probably need to adjust that to my own taste, and certainly the action on this is incredibly low, and I think that's pretty much to be expected with PRS. Back of the guitar, it's all very black, isn't it, folks? All very, very black, and I think it's a beautiful looking guitar. It always strikes me that they put every effort into these SE range to try and get them as close as they can to the American range without the cost of the American production line. Built by World Musical Instruments Company Limited, Korea, under exclusive license for PRS guitars. And there we are. There's the back of the headstock. Front of the headstock, they've gone over to having it looking. The SE is quite tiny on this, and the signature looks pretty good, and the custom truss rod cover looks nice. Very nice nut. I'm not sure what the nut's made out of. I will look it up and try and put it in the description down below. But it's very nice. It's quite a nice feeling neck. And again, scale length, absolutely the PRS 25-inch scale length, which is, for me, spot on, right on the money. So everything's to 2017 spec. So it's a mahogany body, but it's a maple neck, it's a maple cap, and a flamed maple veneer. And I have to say that the flamed maple veneer on this is pretty nice. I don't know if you can see that or if it shows well on the camera, but it's actually quite a nice flame. It's got a little bit of movement into it. It's never going to be the same as when you've got a full maple cap. The depth of this veneer is just going to look what it is. I mean, it's a very nice looking guitar, and I'm sure it's quite light as well, actually. I don't know if they've quoted a weight on this, but I would say that this is about the same weight as the MT1, which I think was around, now I've got to put this into American, I think it was 7 or 8 pounds. But I'll check that, so don't quote me on it. So it's got the bird inlays, and they seem to be quite nicely done. I'm not sure what they're inlaid with. They're certainly inlaid, not painted on. I can see, yeah, I can see that they're fairly nice inlays. It all gets a little bit meh up here at the higher end of the birds. I love the private stock and the customs where they outline the birds. I think it gives them a lot of definition, but it's certainly there and it looks good. The satin neck, I'm not sure. I don't know if that will polish up. A lot of people have said that over a period of time that they believe that this satin neck, when you run your hand over it a lot playing it, will polish up, but that remains to be seen. Certainly it feels lovely to begin with, and it will suit players, I would say, across a range of styles and abilities, and because it's quite fast, it's not super thin, but then at the same time it's thin enough that my small hands can get round it pretty straightforward and pretty easily. I think it's a really, really nice guitar, and for the money to get all of the PRS attributes for just around 800 UK pounds, which probably translates to around just over $1,000 at the moment with our current financial situation in this country, I think that you can't go too far wrong. These are limited run to Europe. It's a European exclusive. I've no idea why they've done that. I guess in the States they want to sell the core range to the American market, but certainly this is here in Europe. I think this is a really beautiful guitar, and I can't wait to plug it in and play it. I will just quickly give it a... Oh, that needs tightening up, and that's just a... Oh, I've thrown the bag down there. So there is an Allen key point at the back of the trem that will allow you to tighten up that trem so it doesn't just fall out of there. But yeah, let's give it a... They've definitely had this out and fiddled with it to set it up, because this was almost in tune. And it still is almost in tune. I think the best thing for me to do is to tune it up properly and give it a proper play through the amplifier for you. But certainly in terms of the looks of this guitar, this is absolutely beautiful. I have had people say that they would prefer to have had the natural maple finish on the back of the neck, but actually I like the fact that it's all black there. The only time I think it looks a little strange is when this, what effectively looks like a black binding on the fingerboard, turns into a full black neck. I think that's the only time it looks a bit strange, because that maple fingerboard's all encased in black. But no, I really love the maple. I do. I love maple fingerboards. So this is perfect for my use. And what was I going to say about it? The finish is typical PRS, really, and also what I've come to expect from the SE range. I've got a Torero and I've played a few others. The frets are not super wide. They, I would suggest, are probably around 3mm width. With my poor eyesight, I couldn't say any more than that. I don't think they're much wider than that. The ends of them are nicely finished. There's no sharp edges. The truss rod cover's nicely on there straight. There's a little gap under it. You won't be able to see that on the camera. There's a tiny little gap under it, but then they're only held on with one screw, so that's what happens. The nut looks beautifully cut. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you will be able to see that. But that nut is, if a little deep on the high E. And again, this is another thing that PRS get absolutely right, in my opinion, which is that as the strings come through the nut, they don't have a steep break angle. That's quite a shallow break angle. But most importantly, the strings go straight to the tuners, the tuning pegs. and they don't bend one way or the other or splay or fan out. Well, of course, unless you put them on wrong and you put them so the string approaches from the top side rather than the inside. But absolutely beautifully made, beautifully set up. The quality control, what do they go through? They check the nut, they check the truss rod, they check the frets, they check the action bass side, the action treble side, they check the intonation. Sounds pretty close to me. They check the tremolo and bridge setup, which looks perfectly floating to me. Absolutely level for this gauge of strings at least. They check the electronics, well, we'll be doing that in a moment, and it's got this nice sort of metal jack plug. That's a little bit loose. There we go. If I was going to have a quibble, it's a minor quibble, isn't it? And they check the trem arm and tools are in the box, and then they sign to say it's all cool for our friend Paul. So I'm going to be back in a short while and I'll give you a playthrough demo of this, but that's the unboxing of the PRS Custom 24 SE Ultra Limited Edition European exclusive with the maple fingerboard in Purple Burst. I'll be back really soon with that playthrough, folks. In the meantime, take good care.